Sweet.
So it was when did music last make you feel like you have a place in this world?
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, man, that is a deep question.
Indeed.
I don't know, man. Like this might sound weird, but like every time you get like goosebumps, like when like when you listen to music,
Mm,
I think that's probably it for me, and that happens all the time.
yeah.
Sometimes I'll feel, uh, actually, man. Sometimes I'll feel like, are you talking about listening to music or actually like your own music? Just
Define it how you like.
So with my own music, man, that one's difficult because every time I write something, I'm like, this is terrible. I'm going to delete that. Until someone tells me, nah, man, that's actually pretty good. Keep going, you know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually listening to other people's music, basically whenever you get goosebumps, because you kind of just realize how important music actually is for everybody. You know, it's like I'm going to end up sounding super deep here, man, but it's like the universal language, you know. So like,
Mm.
even though I can't speak Greek, for example, like a Greek person would be able to feel the music that I'm feeling at the same time, you know? So I guess that's probably my my cheesy deep answer to that
Oh,
super deep question.
it's good because I think what's interesting actually is the way it's interesting how just people hear the question differently because like or that you've talked about both sides of things when it comes to writing and when it comes to listening
Mhm.
because actually I suppose what you've pointed out is quite important that actually you can feel your sort of place in this world if you want to tie it into this question
Yeah.
um, just by listening and just enjoying it like it's almost ironically not that deep although you're right it's
Mhm.
like just enjoying it like it's kind of it's a
Absolutely, man.
universal language it doesn't um, you can have those little moments of enjoyment that maybe people forget. I think particularly artists when they're trying to put that pressure on themselves to like to write stuff and be creative all the time and actually you can just sit and enjoy it like so I'm a big Alter Bridge fan and they put out a song yesterday
Nice.
and that was a cool little moment for me. I was just listening through, like, because I listened the first time and I was kind of like, I think it's cool. I don't know. And I listened back this morning, like, oh, I really like this. So, and that was a bit of not goosebumps quite, but like oh, this is exciting. Like,
Man, I remember, I think it was like 2012 or something like that.
mm.
So if you've probably seen my page, it goes without saying that I'm a massive Van Halen fan.
Mm. It didn't take much digging to find that.
Nice. So in 2012, they released the last album they ever released. And I remember, like, I don't know if you're a gamer or not, man, but you know how you go to like midnight launch things for games if you're a super
I know
sweaty
what you
gamer?
mean. Yeah, I'm not a gamer, but I am familiar. Yeah.
So like, I was waiting. I was like, 10 to midnight, and I'm sitting looking at the time on my phone, and I'm like, my God, this album's coming out in 9 minutes, 8 minutes, like, and I listened to it, and I listened to it religiously all night before school the next again day. I didn't sleep, so like that was a moment for me where I was like, my God, I'm alive whilst Van Halen just released an album, like, because obviously the last album they released before that was 98, I think, like 3 years after I was born, so like I didn't know anything at that point,
Yeah.
Um, but when they released A Different Kind of Truth, I sat and listened to it all night, and that was kind of like one of those moments where I was like, music's giving me a place in this world because this is like something that I'm interested in, and it's so
Yeah.
sick, Went to school the next again day, everybody was like, "Why are you so tired, man?" And I was like, "Oh, I was listening to the new Van Halen album, Van Helsing album. What are you talking about? That's a movie." And it's like, "Oh God," like so that kind of like you know gave you that little sort of unique feeling that like, wow, at this moment, I feel like the only person in the world that's listening to
Yeah.
that. Until I met like loads of American people that were like, "Yeah, Van Halen, man, I've listened to them for years." Like,
Yeah, I weirdly, this is so criminal as a guitarist. Like I teach guitar, that's my job. But
mhm,
I obviously I absolutely appreciate everything Van
yeah,
Halen's done, but like it never quite clicked with me. I couldn't tell you why. I
yeah,
don't know. It's not that I don't. There's still I have songs on my playlist that I'll play like they're sort of in the mix with all the other stuff I listen to, but
yeah,
I don't know what it was. It never quite. I was more like in terms of your classic rock and metal. I was more like the Metallica, Black Sabbath, not
yeah.
so much Iron Maiden, but I couldn't tell you why. I find it funny, like lots of people have their little niches in those classic, and sometimes like I could name you loads of Iron Maiden songs, but I couldn't really like. I could hum you the iconic bits that like
Man,
much everyone
it's,
could.
it's I mean, I guess everybody's into their own thing, and that's what kind of makes music and just the world in general interesting, because if everybody liked the same thing, then it would suck.
Yeah.
For example, you mentioned Metallica. I've tried, man, so hard to get into that band, and I just don't like them, man. Like
Fair.
there's, I don't know what it is. They're, I respect them for being like the biggest metal band to ever exist, but
Yeah,
like
you got to respect that, really. Yeah.
totally, man. Like I think there's like two tracks that I like that I used to really dig. Sad but True is like, and I know that's probably criminal. Like heavy Metallica fans will be like, oh man, like what
No,
are you
it's great.
talking
I love
about?
Sabbatary.
So like, well, that's not so bad then, man. But like, yeah, I really dig that track. And I always, kind of enjoyed what's it called? Is it Blackened or something like that? I can't even remember what.
Yeah, yeah, quite
Yeah.
thrashy, like yeah, thrashy
So,
kind of riff. It's in seven, I think.
is that the one that starts out with like the crazy bass intro?
Oh, that might be either that. That could be there's a few that could be. It could be For Whom the Bell Tolls.
That's the one.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's yeah, classic. Yeah.
yeah, I like
Yeah.
that track. But when it comes to like the big four,
Mm.
excuse me, Megadeth is my jam.
I've got
Really
more
dig it.
into them recently. I think there's just something about the hooks combined with the riffs with Metallica for me that like I
Totally.
get the Megadeth thing. I really like. I think Marty's just like
Oh yeah.
I don't even. It's weird when you look and you think that was like 35 years ago or 40 years ago, and you're like,
Yeah.
how on earth? Like,
Marty's one of those guitar players, man. I don't think gets enough credit for it, but like to me, what separates like a great guitar player from like a god level guitar player is when you listen to like a guitar player playing and they can play like two notes and you're like, oh, that's that guy.
mm,
Like Eric Johnson's a really good example of that. He can
yeah.
play like a chord and you're like, oh, that's Eric Johnson. Marty's one of those guys, because of the way he bends and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and I was watching. I was listening to. Do you remember Ozzy put an album out not that long? It was maybe a couple of
oh
years,
yeah,
and
mhm,
Slash did a solo on it, and I
yeah,
just tuned in to like a split second of the song, and it happened to be the solo part. I just kind of skipped through it a bit. I was like, oh, is that
yeah.
Slash? And my mate was like, how do you know that? I was like, I don't know, it just is.
I
And
just
I
know.
literally just heard like a couple notes. It wasn't me. I'm not claiming to be some sort of like genius musical ear. It was just such an iconic. It was a vibrato and the
Totally.
crispiness of the tone, all of that stuff. But
I think
yeah,
there's like a handful of guitar players that I can name that have got that. Eddie being one of them for me. As soon as I hear his tone, I'm like, oh, that's Ed.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Eric Johnson, Dimebags like that because he's whether you like it or not, it's like Marmite. Whether you love or hate his tone, it's Dimebag.
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Try to think of it. Obviously Marty, Hendrix. You can kind of tell it's him.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
because of the sounds and the way he played. And who's another guy?
I
There's
mean,
one more.
there's a good. I think Hendrix is more for me. It's more the songwriting with Hendrix.
Yeah, totally, man.
The something actually what I find interesting because I've seen your videos pop up quite a lot sort of over the last few years or whatever, just from generally
Nice.
being on Instagram and following guitar things and people.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you went from kind of, or at least from what I could tell, when I first saw your videos, it was very much the shred kind of thing,
Yeah.
to a bit more variety in hearing some bluesy stuff or like listening to the music you've released. There's kind of like
Hmm.
a bit more variety in there in
Yeah.
terms of not maybe not like genre as such, although like there are different blends of things. How do you how do you kind of feel about like trying to find your place as a musician?
Um, this is, I actually listened to the podcast that you done with Sophie a couple
Oh,
of days
cool.
ago,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
and she was talking about trying to find her identity, and I
yeah,
was like, yes. When I heard that, I was like, that's totally because, like, man, if you look through my Instagram, you can actually see like what you just said. You can see like the phases I've went through with music. When I first started posting on Instagram, it was 15-second clips that you could do, and I used to just kind of post for like well, it was actually one of my friends was like, "Oh man, you should post on Instagram and use hashtags," and I was like, "I have no idea what that means." I'm a bit of a technophobe, man. So, like when it came to that stuff, I didn't know what to do. Um, so basically, when I first started posting, because it was only 15 seconds, I was like, "I'm just going to play like a really fast diminished sweep or something like that, and then
yeah.
post that and hope for the best." At the time, I was going through like a massive Jason Becker phase, like Paul Gilbert, Jason Becker, that kind of stuff, but I started noticing when I was looking through my Instagram that like, man, this lick is just the exact same as what you just played last week, but in a different key. Like, you know,
Mm.
that's kind of boring. So I was really into John Mayer. I still am. I think he's an incredible musician.
Oh yeah.
And I decided to start posting like bluesy stuff and things like that. I basically just post like whatever I'm listening to at that point or whatever kind of inspires me at that point. In terms of the music I release, that's something kind of like what Sophie was talking about, where I'm constantly trying to find my sound, find like whether that's tone or style of playing and stuff. I'm torn between wanting to be like the 80s rocker guy and wanting to be like a prog Pliny style guy, That's kind of like where I come from with that kind of stuff. But the funny thing is, every time I record a bit of music, I send it to my friend Jay. He's a guy that produces the music that I've released. And the first question I ask him is, does this sound like Van Halen? And if he says yes, then we don't use it,
Yeah.
because I'm kind of pigeonholed. It's from my own fault, man, and I don't really mind, but I'm kind of pigeonholed as the Van Halen guy on Instagram, or like one of them anyway. But when it comes to releasing music, I don't want that. Like I'm terrified that that's going to be a thing. Oh, he's just a rip off of Eddie. Let's not listen to that. Does that make sense?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm big on Alter Bridge, and I'm almost quite glad I didn't manage to get a band sorted early on in my sort of finding my sound, because I was writing stuff that was really like, I wouldn't say carbon copy, but it's pretty damn close. Like,
Yeah,
even if it wasn't a copy, like stylistically and tonally, it was just very close.
yeah,
Um, so by the time I'd found a band and we'd actually got off the ground and we'd worked with a professional producer who had sort of helped us shape the songs and things,
mhm.
um, it didn't suddenly. I was like, oh, okay, right now I can. I don't feel like I sound like another band. I feel like I just sound like me. But I think
Yeah,
it's quite difficult to. I think there's a lot. It's easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself to pursue your own sound.
totally.
Something I took away from a talk I did with Simon Dobson, who's I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've definitely heard of the name before, man.
He's
I'm
in the
terrible with
Parallax,
names.
or he conducts the Parallax Orchestra. So they did like
Oh,
Architects, Alter Bridge,
nice,
um, Bring Me the Horizon. They've done all like the orchestral stuff with them. Um,
nice.
and he's saying about finding your own voice being an exercise in futility. Like
Yeah,
it's just about you just need to play and write and basically
totally, man.
do, and that's how you find your voice. Have you
Yeah.
found it kind of difficult, or have you found it hard to kind of like? Do you feel that sort of pressure to find your own voice?
Yeah and no. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. When it comes to writing my own music, I'm a big fan of alternate tunings. I don't know if you checked out Aurora at
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that song is in like a totally messed up tuning.
Oh, cool.
The strings from the low E to the high E, it's F, A, G, A, B, C. That's what the guitar's tuned to.
So what would that be? What kind of how would you call what would you call that tuning? Is it just some
I
notes
have
that work together?
no idea, man. Basically, what happened was one day I was watching the Captain Meets with Yvette Young.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of her sort of guitar playing and kind of like just the overall general vibe that she has in her music. And she was talking about using a Japanese tuning from a band. I think it was called a band called Toe or something like that, man. And she said the tuning, and I picked up my guitar and I tried to put it into the tuning that she mentioned, and I ended up doing it wrong by accident. So I got it like half right and half wrong.
mm,
And I played, before I realized I'd done it wrong, I played like a chord, which is, if you listen to Aurora, you can hear like this sort of harmonic thing, like this harmonic little run going through it every now and then in the song, like basically from start to finish. That's what I played, and I was like, oh shit, that sounds kind of cool. So after that, because I'm a huge fan of the band The Goo Goo Dolls,
yeah,
all of their songs are in like wild tunings.
yeah,
I basically just apply that. I'm kind of just ripping them off, man, to be honest with you. I kind of just apply that kind of idea where it's like, okay, the guitar's in an alternate tuning now, try and come up with like a cool riff, but rock riff in that kind of tuning. So the most recent song I'm working on right now, I can't even remember what the tuning is, but it's even more crazy than Aurora's tuning. But that helps me write the way it kind of helps me write the way that I do in a sense. Because if I write, say, if I put the guitar into drop C sharp, at the moment I will play like music that sounds like you know I don't even know, like a Band Simple or something like that, man. It just sounds like metal. Whereas when I write
done.
music in alternate tunings, basically the way that I describe my music to people that ask is it's Goo Goo Dolls, but with a Marshall cranked to 10. That's basically what it is with
Yeah,
instrumental stuff and no vocals. That's kind of how. So that in a way is kind of like a happy accident. That's kind of how I found my sound. But then again, I don't really know if it is my sound, man, because people could listen to it and be like, "Oh no, that sounds like this guy." You know, when I first released Aurora in 2020, someone was like, "Oh, that sounds like Steve Vai." I was like, "No, it doesn't." You know,
I
but
don't
like,
think it does.
but then I was like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You know,
Yeah,
but
I feel like that's very much someone listened to guitar music once.
totally,
Oh well,
totally,
that sounds like Joe Satriani or Steve Vai or
yeah,
it's like, well, there are other people that play guitar.
exactly, man. I mean, I don't know. What would you say Aurora sounds like if you?
I kind of I'm trying to there's something about the open chords that you would
Mhm.
kind of, or the sort of arpeggiated chords in the background. I'm trying to put my finger on what kind of, because I don't listen to a lot of like guitar, like I don't want to say guitar music, that kind of pigeonhole, but I mean, like
Yeah,
music. I'm listening to a lot of music with vocals. That's my main kind of like what I'm interested in.
nice.
So in terms of comparing it, it's tricky because like I could just do the Steve Vai thing, but actually it's not, like in terms of your instrumentally. Oh, oh, this is going to really bug me now. I'm trying to think of. I was listening to some Jeff Buckley this morning, and
Nice.
the way he uses chords and things, it doesn't feel like a valid. Oh, I suppose there is some validity in it. I guess there is some similarity there because, like the nature of the kind of arpeggiated chords in the background. That was kind of that was what my ear tuned more into.
Nice.
And I mean, the leads are really obviously really cool, but so I think I'm always interested in the harmony side of things, and I think that was
Totally.
what I tuned into. So weirdly, like I said, I was listening to Lovey Should Have Come Over this morning.
Nice. Nice,
I
man.
can kind of hear something in that,
Well,
That's my way.
that's really cool, man. You know, I think
Yeah.
uh, when I write music, I try my best to not sound like anybody else, but I also try and get my influences in there at some point. When I was writing that track and writing the track that I'm recently working on, I've been listening to Pliny a lot recently, and I'm kind of trying to get more into that kind of prog side of things. I've got like a weird relationship with songwriting, and I'd like to do the instrumental thing, but I also hate doing it at the same time. Um, I much rather enjoy working in a band with a vocalist because with instrumental, to keep the listener excited, it's all on you. You can't just play the same chord for 16 bars and play sweet picking over the top of it. That just, I mean, well, you can, but to me, that's not interesting. Whereas when you could write a really awesome riff and have like a great singer sing over it, and I find that stuff really cool. But I find it easier to write music with vocals than I do when it comes to instrumental stuff. But at the same time, the instrumental stuff's a bit of a challenge, and I do find it quite fun. Once the song's finished, I'm like, oh, there you go, that's it, done. That's people hope people dig that. Whereas that song, like with the song I'm working on right now, I started writing in January 2021, and that shows you how long it takes me to to finish songs.
Nice.
Whereas Aurora, for example, that song I had written that and recorded a full demo for it in about 2 days. It's funny how that happens with songs. Like some songs want to be written, some songs are like, nah, like you're on your own here. I'm going to make this difficult for you. It's kind of like what John Mayer said. It's like doing a maths like exam or something like that, trying to
I
finish
love
a
that.
song.
I love that kind of quote. I always reference that because I think people expect or have this expectation or this kind of almost romantic kind of expectation that like songwriting is just always this magical moment of inspiration. It's like sometimes it's really difficult.
Exactly, man. Sometimes
That's
it's
why I
like the
really
full
like
thing.
that he said that, and actually someone like him that writes quite like, I don't want to say commercial music, but it is like
Yeah.
commercially viable music, much more so than Pliny, for example. If you
Hmm.
think about like the listener base.
Yeah.
So to hear someone like him say that, yeah, if for example Steve Vai said that, be like,
Yeah.
cool, but like
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me as much.
Yeah.
But to
Totally,
hear someone
man.
like John Mayer say it when he's doing lots of open chords and acoustic stuff, it's like it to me gives a bit more of an insight into the fact that you shouldn't have to just expect. Because I
Yeah.
think it puts a downer on it when you don't have those. If you go months without inspiration, it's like you're like, well, I guess I can't write songs then.
Man, there's been so many moments where I've been like that. It's like even just a couple of weeks ago, like I've been struggling to finish this. So obviously I'm working on more than one song at the same time. I've not been working on just the one song for like a year and a half now. But like um when it comes to that song, I really want to finish it so bad because the riff at the start I feel is pretty cool, and every time I've let someone hear it, they're like, oh man, that's awesome, so it kind of makes me want to finish it. But there'll be some times where I'm sitting here at like 4 a.m. I've been sitting there for 3 hours, 4 hours, or something like that, and I've not managed to even finish like one section of it that I'm working on. And I was like, man, should I even play guitar? I think I'm gonna go get a 9 to 5 in Morrison's again, like that kind of thing. Like it's like this weird relationship with songwriting I have. But it's nice to know that, man, talking about John Mayer, I love listening to his interviews because it's like, oh, he's been like that sometimes, so that means it's okay to struggle with this, or like to not be very good at writing this song, like that kind of stuff,
Yeah. It's always a bit of a downer when you're never as good looking and successful as John Mayer, but there
Totally.
the balance to be found in the
Yeah.
So like how do you kind of deal with the, because I have it, and I'm sure so many musicians, I think probably more than not, have to deal with this kind of self-doubting kind of process. Do you find that kind of, I find sometimes that can interrupt the process, where I can almost be writing something that maybe is kind of cool. It might not be brilliant, but it has potential to be very good.
Yeah.
And if it's not brilliant in the moment, that doubt comes in, and you're like, am I any good at this? Or like, is this, even just on a smaller scale, like, is this thing worth pursuing right now, like this song? Because
Absolutely, man.
I find it can really interrupt the process. And if I just let myself write the song, it at least turns out okay most of the time.
It's funny, man. Like the thing I found with music is when you don't think, that's usually when something cool happens. Whereas if you overthink something, then that's when it starts to all kind of fall apart. Not in like a depressing way or anything like that, man. But like you said, when you're writing a song, sometimes it just like totally flattens you, and you're kind of just like, oh, I don't know if this is even worth doing. But then I find if you just sit and kind of force yourself to not force yourself, because it's hard to force creativity, but like make a point of being like, okay, between this time and this time on this day, I'm going to sit and try and write a song, or finish this section I'm working on, or do an Instagram video or something like that. I think kind of way of working helps, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think sometimes you got to allocate time and just go, I'm going to do something in this time. Doesn't matter how good it is, but I'm going to do
Totally.
X, Y, and Z thing. Can you hear any feedback in my mic? Because I've got the window open. There's a breeze coming through. I just want to check.
No, I can't.
Okay,
No,
good.
I shut my eyes just before I done this because there's a building site outside my house right now, and I'm like, okay, I don't want like there to be like noises of people sawing stuff and like during this podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm like halfway because it's like however hot it is right now, 30 something. I've got the window right behind me open and the door open. I just heard some kids like shouting downstairs. I really hope this isn't coming through.
I've never heard that, man.
Yeah,
Don't
cool.
worry.
But yeah, I think the whole kind of process of, especially being so present online, how have you found that kind of relationship between online presence? Because you built quite a following. How have you found, and this is kind of a similar, I know you mentioned the podcast with Sophie. Obviously, you guys will have probably encountered some similar kind of, not necessarily issue, or maybe issues, depends how you look at it, but like some similar obstacles along the way. How have you found that sort of mentally in terms of trying to stay active online and present yourself to the world? What's that process like?
So back in like before lockdown, I used to try and like I was like, okay, I'm going to post every day at 3 p.m. That was like the time that I used to post, and I had to do something, whether it was a picture of a guitar, an amp, or it was a video. I made a point of having to post at 3 p.m. every single day. Whereas when lockdown started, I was like, oh man, I'm going to be so creative. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I've done none of it. Kind of going back to John Mayer again, man, with this. I watched an interview of him. I don't know if it was an Instagram live stream he done or something like that, but he was talking about how people feel like they have to constantly post online now to stay relative. And he doesn't agree with that. He's like, it's good to go away, let people, the people that dig what you do. Obviously, I'm not on anywhere near the same scale as someone like John Mayer, man, but like, the people that enjoy the stuff that I do, he says, let them miss you. And then that means when you come back with something fresh and something new, they'll be excited. Whereas if they watch you playing the same kind of sort of similar stuff every day, they're going to get bored, and they're going to kind of just be like, oh, he's posting another video. Okay, like, I'll just not bother watching that right now, kind of thing. So, for my own benefit as well, man, because I really did get bored of posting all the time. I have a funny relationship with social media, man. But I was like, okay, well, I'll post once a week. or something. And that still works, man. I think the tough thing with social media is the fact that the algorithms and stuff are constantly changing. So Instagram, for example, they're now trying to do the whole TikTok thing, which is posting reels. And I realized recently that if you post a normal video, it doesn't get anywhere near as many views as a reel does. So like I posted a normal video and I was barely scraping like 25,000 views or something like that, which, you know, when you're used to getting a lot more than that, it kind of sucks. You know, it's kind of like demoralizing in a way. I think I actually spoke to Sophie and she was like, "Oh, you should try a reel or something." So I posted a reel. My previous video before that got about 20,000 views. I posted a reel and it got 260,000 views. And it's just like, okay. So it's like, it's not that I'm doing anything wrong. It's that social media and algorithms want you to go this certain way and you kind of just have to go with the flow. I've kind of struggled to get into the whole TikTok thing, man, because I just don't really understand that app. But now that Instagram has reels, it's kind of cool, you know, it kind of works. But it's kind of all process because you have to film like, what do you call it? Why have I totally forgotten that? Like
portrait.
Yeah, you have to film in portrait mode,
yeah.
which took me a little minute to try and get the videos right on that way. But
yeah.
you know, because you have to kind of get a nice angle from that way, so it's a little bit of trial and error. I mean, if you look through my Instagram, you'll see over time all the different angles that I've had on the videos because like I'm constantly like, nah, that looks kind of shit now. I'm going to change that, you know. And it's kind of like, you know, that's like a process, man. But I used to take social media really seriously. And then my relationship with it's totally changed now. I've not posted for a month now on Instagram. I still post stories and stuff. And I have a couple of videos coming out soon that I've been working on, but like it's not like the relationship I had before where it's like if I don't post this then I'm going to lose all my followers and you know the companies that you know work with me and stuff aren't going to care anymore and like that's the kind of stuff I used to think. I had this like total nonsense like idea in my head that that's how it works on social media, where it's totally not, you know. I don't know if that kind of answers your question or not, or if I've just went on a rant for.
you don't know how many people do exactly what you just did. Well, they'll like answer a question or kind of give their opinion, and they go, "Is that okay? Like, did I just rant?" It's like I don't care. It's good. Like whatever. Like I said, there's no. It's the whole point of a podcast. You can chat about whatever you know.
Totally, man.
I think it's interesting what you said about kind of somewhat of a segue, but when you talked about the sort of the self-talk in terms of these guys still going to be interested, like the companies I'm working with and blah 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 and posting every day.
Yeah.
I know I mean, we can go into this as much or as you like. Because I know you mentioned about sort of anxiety and things, and I think it's sort of an important topic to touch on, if you know. But we can go into it as much or little as you like. But I know a lot of the self-talk is something that can kind of spiral quite quickly into a state of anxiety or depression for people. Is that something when you talk about like self-talk in particular, how you look at your own, how you criticize yourself, and when I say criticize, I don't always mean in a negative way, how you sort of evaluate your own place as a musician and in the world. How's that kind of changed over the time you've been doing what you're doing on with music?
It's kind of funny, man. So in terms of the anxiety stuff, I've been dealing with that for about 3 years now. A lot better than I used to be with it. But when it comes to social media and stuff, the anxiety kind of manifests itself in the sense that, like, you know, I started getting endorsements and stuff. You know, my first endorsement was with Strandberg guitars, and I didn't know what an endorsement was. You know, I was like, okay, I can quit my job. I'm rich. No, I'm just joking. Basically, when I got my first endorsement, I didn't really understand what it was like. And at the time with the Strandberg guys, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, man, but it was kind of like you have to post twice every week or something like that, you know, and it was kind of like that was part of your deal with those guys at the time. Because I had an artist deal with them, which was called like an associate artist, where you're not like on the same level, obviously, as someone like Pliny or you know, Yvette Young at the time when she was playing those guitars. And that was kind of cool, man. You know, in a way it helped because it was like, oh, that gives me the motivation to post. But in a way it was also kind of scary because you were like, if I can't post this week, then I'm going to get in trouble or something. You know, that's probably not what would happen. You know, I don't think they would care too much, but when you're told that you have to post every couple of weeks, it's kind of like a job. That'd be like, okay, you're working this time, but if you can't make it, then you're in trouble, kind of thing, like that sort of idea. So then obviously I learned about endorsements and how they work. Casey at the time at Strandberg, he was a great guy. They're all great dudes there. And they kind of sort of taught me a little bit about what all that kind of stuff means. How if you're endorsing a company, you probably shouldn't be playing other guitars on Instagram and things like that. This was all like a total. I know that sounds kind of stupid now, man, but at the time for me, that was all a bit of a learning curve. And when I left those guys, I started working with the guys at Sir, and their relationship with social media is like totally different. Obviously, posting is still important, but I remember during lockdown, right at the start of lockdown, my grandfather passed away, and I didn't feel like posting anything for quite a while. And I didn't post anything for a few weeks. And Justin, the artist rep at Sir, he's a great dude. He called me up, and we were just kind of shooting the shit and chat. And then I apologized to him for not posting, and he was like, "Dude, like, what are you talking about?" He was like, "You don't have to like worry about that. I don't care if you post." He's like, "That's not why we work with you." Kind of thing. Is we work with you because we believe in you as an artist and stuff, and you can post whenever you want. I think that was like a huge weight off the shoulders, man, being told that. And it's like, oh no, your endorsement with us isn't a case of like you must post this many times or you're out kind of thing. It wasn't like that. It was kind of like we work with you because we like what you do and stuff. Obviously, if I was to disappear off the face of the earth, like in terms of social media and stuff, and not post for like 3 years, then I think that would be a different story. But like, I don't think you would do that. When you do the kind of stuff that we do. But the social media kind of thing, I think the imposter syndrome kind of comes into it a little bit. I think every musician I've spoken to probably deals with that on some wavelength. Uh, for me, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it was kind of weird when I started working with the guys at Sir and then Friedman Amps, like all my dream companies, man, that I've like lusted after for years, I used to go to guitar all the time and try out those guitars and try out those amps and be like, one day, like the Wayne's World thing, like one day she will be mine, like, like looking at this guitar in the shop. Once I started working with these guys, I was kind of like, oh, I don't really deserve this because I'm not as good as Andy Wood, who's another Sir artist, or I'm not, I've not got a million followers like Matthias Asato, who's a Sir artist, like those kind of things, and that's kind of where the imposter sort of syndrome comes in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting one because like for me, I almost have like the opposite, and this sounds a bit strange to sort of call it like it's not really an opposite, it's just like an other way of looking at it. But for me, with the last band I was with,
yeah,
we put together some music that I genuinely thought was like some of the best metal music that I'd heard in the last year or whatever. I was really
nice.
proud of it,
That's good, man.
And yeah, but then the problem is there's that sense of expectation, which is almost like it's not like the opposite to imposter syndrome. But it kind of is in some ways because it's like I think it's almost a little bit of arrogance. It's almost like I think this is better than some of what's out there, but it just didn't really get much of the. It didn't. It kind of did okay. Like it did better than a lot of like small bands, but I think I kind of suffered with the weight of expectation, and then not meeting that. Which, like I said, I don't really know if you'd call that an opposite necessarily to.
I don't think that's a bad thing, man. I wouldn't say it's arrogance. I think having confidence in what you're making is believing in yourself, and I think that's a really good thing. Like there's obviously a fine line. I don't know if you're familiar. Well, you probably will be, but like guys like Conor McGregor and stuff. Like that. Those kind of guys, like that kind of attitude where he's like, "I am the best guy in the world. I will throw money at you." Like that kind of attitude he has, man. That's not good. But like,
I think there's something seriously wrong with Conor McGregor. Like, I think he actually needs help. Like, I don't mean that in a nasty way. Like, as in, but I think he like when you watch him, I see loads of clips of him. I'm just like, I think he like needs some real help. Because I think
he has to be on drugs, man. Like there's videos where I've seen him on Instagram where he films himself shouting at a mirror.
Yeah,
his pupils are like huge, and you're like, yeah, man, you need to lay off those drugs, bro.
Yeah,
but like, like
what performance are you enhancing? Like,
yeah, exactly, man. His kind of attitude is like not great. I mean, it works for him. He's a billionaire and stuff, man. But like, yeah, he definitely needs help. But like, I think the kind of thing you're talking about and having confidence in your music and stuff and having confidence in what you've done, I think that's a good thing. It's funny, man. There's like a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and it varies on who you speak to.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have to have a certain. This is a weird one, man. I think you have to have a certain sort of confidence slash arrogance in what you do in the music industry. Otherwise, you won't be taken seriously. If you're too much like, oh no, everything I do sucks, and like this isn't good enough, and you know, like that, have that kind of attitude, then people will just be like, what's this guy talking about, man? Like, if he wants to make it, that's not the right way to go around it, you know. But I guess everybody's kind of. I think we're all on the same path, but I think people just deal with it in different ways. One thing that a lot of people do that I've, you know, a lot of friends of mine that I've spoken to that do the same kind of stuff that we do on social media is one problem is they compare themselves to a lot of other people. And I think that's probably not the healthiest thing to do. You know, it'd be like me, for example, comparing myself to Matthias Assato. And it's like, well, why am I not playing with Jesse J? Or like, why don't I have 1 million followers? You know, like that's just like not a good way to look at these kind of things. You know, I've never really looked at it that way, but you get the idea, you know, like kind of just keep enjoying what you're doing and don't focus too much on what other people are doing. You know, if like, kind of stay in your lane and do your thing. I think that's a healthy way to look at it instead of.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it'd be like anything else, man. Trying to compare yourself to anybody in life, you know, just kind of do your thing and take inspiration off other people, but don't try and be other people. I think that's kind of a good way to do it, man.
Yeah. So there's a few things from what you just said, funnily enough, that says there were 3 things. One's immediately left my head. I think the other one was the least important one, probably. So the one thing was earlier in the podcast, you said about how you got about 20-something thousand views on one video and then about like 200,000. Like, yeah. For me, for perspective, I'm still kind of building the podcast. It's growing nicely. You know, the trend is that way, which is nice. And
that's good, man.
But if I got 20,000 views on a video, I'd be like, oh shit, this is awesome. So it's like, it's funny how it's so relative. The thing I always reference to people who I think maybe think they have a tough time of it, and I'm not saying they don't, but when you look at someone like Chester Bennington, who in theory for every musician, from the outside you look at that and you're like, he's got everything. Like he's got one of the most famous metal bands ever, probably all the money in the world, family as well and everything. And it's like, if he wasn't happy, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was that sort of led him down that path, but it's all relative, isn't it? And like, so because of that fact, you can't be comparing to others, because what you might think is amazing, they might be looking at thinking that's dog shit. Like, I don't like that. You know, in the same way, if I got 20,000 views, if I got 250,000 views, I'd be like,
that'll happen. That'll happen.
Conor McGregor all over, like, you know. Like,
man, I remember having a conversation with Sophie a while back about Instagram, and I was, you know, looking at social media, and we were chatting about like followers and stuff. And Sophie was like, you know, my video got less than 100,000 views today, or like, you know, my video got less than 150k. The last one got like, you know, 300k or something like that. And I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, you know, I got like 10,000 on this video. Like, you know, whereas it's totally true, man. Like, it's funny to think about that, because when I first started posting on Instagram, I remember if I got 100 likes, I was like, oh my God, I am like Conor McGregor. You know, I was everybody loves me. Like, you know, it was 100 likes, and most of them were people I went to high school with. You know, but yeah, it's funny how like that kind of changes over the sort of as your page grows, your expectations constantly. It's like, when is good enough? You know. And that was a big thing that I sort of spoke to myself about at the start of lockdown. Sorry, not the start of lockdown, halfway through lockdown. The guys at Sir basically built me my dream guitar.
It's the purple
one, yeah, man. So, quick little sidetrack here for you, man. The first time I seen a Sir guitar is when Guthrie Govan done a clinic at my college. And I got to see the Sir in person, and I was like, oh my God. Guthrie Govan, oh my God, that's a Sir, you know. And that weekend I went to Guitar, and I was absolutely devastated when I saw how much they cost.
Yeah.
So I was like, I will never be able to afford that ever. You know, like there's no way. You know, I'm not going to spend that much money on a guitar. I will never have that much money to spend on a guitar. You know, fast forward to last year. Well, technically in 2020, I was on the phone to Johnston at CERN. He was like, "We'd like to build you, you know, like a guitar that's yours and like one that is everything that you want in one guitar, kind of thing." So we went back and forward about the specs for a couple of weeks, and then they started building it, man, and it's like perfect. You know, I love it, and I love it so much, man. It's like my favorite guitar. It's the guitar I play like 99.9% of the time now. When I first got that guitar, I was like, right, that's it. I've completed it. I'm done. You know, and that kind of, I didn't post actually for quite a while after getting that guitar because in my head that was a goal that I had set myself for years. Like one day I will have the perfect guitar that I've dreamed of for years. Sorry if you can hear dogs going mad outside my house. Can you hear that?
Only just.
Sorry about that.
It's
Just
right.
crazy dogs in this neighborhood. But when I got that guitar, man, I kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit because I forgot to set myself another goal after that. After a while, I realized the next goal is to actually pull the finger out and get music released. But when I first got that guitar, it was kind of like, well, I've completed it, man. It's like talking about gaming earlier. It was like I got the platinum trophy on a PlayStation game. That was it. There's nothing more you can do, you know. But then that sort of feeling where I was like, I don't know what else to do from here, kind of turned into, okay, now I've got that guitar. Now I'm going to go record music. Like, and it inspired me to keep going and do more stuff. Again, I've went on a super big tangent for you, man, and I've totally forgotten what the original question was.
It's fine. I kind of remember. So there's a few things. There's a moment of honesty from me here. I remember when I first saw your videos, I think it was, so I'd just started pursuing music more seriously. I think I was probably, so I'm 24 now. I was probably like, I imagine when I first saw your videos, I might have been about like 20 or maybe something.
Nice.
I don't know how long you've kind of been doing the videos for, but I think I saw your videos kind of pop up as and when. I remember seeing your page kind of grow, grow quite significantly a while back.
Yeah.
I was like, screw this guy. Like, it's obviously I thought the videos were really good, but you have that moment of like, and it wasn't just you for the record. There's lots of
no.
talented.
I'm deeply offended now, man.
But like, you see talented guitar players on Instagram, even if they're doing something totally different to what I'm trying to do. If it was like neo soul or something, which it seems to be every Instagram guitar player, but that's a thing.
Totally, man.
But I'd see that, and I kind of, again, it's almost that like that expectation that I have of myself, where it's like I kind of feel like I've got to be better than all of these people, and it can almost just send you into a pointless kind of comparison thing where it's like, firstly, there's a certain level you get to of playing where there isn't much better than. It's just kind of like, is David Gilmour better than Marty Friedman? Well,
it's just all preference.
It's just style and preference, and it's like they're both better at different things, I would say. And even if you don't think, because technically Marty's pretty proficient, I'm sure he could play Comfortably Numb pretty well, but it's like it still wouldn't be the same, and he wouldn't have wrote it. So that's the whole other thing. So I remember kind of and this actually another thing, going back to a bit of a segue, but going back to the sort of Instagram thing, when I first started posting videos on, I mean, I don't really do much of it now. I kind of post the odd one or two, but I'm not really, it's not really what I kind of want to pursue. But I posted a few as I was progressing. Like, I wasn't that great. I was okay. I was progressing at a decent rate. So I was I was playing some kind of semi-challenging solos, things like your Bohemian Rhapsodies and these kind of things where, at an intermediate level, you can, I'm not going to sound like Brian May, but I can kind of play the solo in my and they were getting like, I had, a few hundred followers or something, and I was getting like quite a lot of views on them, like even just a couple thousand. That's quite a lot for the fact that I had no.
That's really good, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I would post, if I put the hashtag and I posted something, I'd immediately get like 20 likes just from people who just search for the hashtag. Whereas now, if I could put hashtag guitar with I had no followers, I just wouldn't get any likes on it. Just nothing. It would not get shown to anyone. I never felt like it was overcrowded.
Yeah.
Whereas now it does feel kind of overcrowded, but you post something and it doesn't get seen by anyone. It's this weird, like,
Instagram's exhausting, man.
That's the best way to put it.
The sort of glory days for Instagram was probably about 2017, 2018. You could post a video, and that was back when like your feed was by when someone posted it. So
Yeah.
like, you know, that was the best way, man. They totally screwed it up by changing that. You know, now it's all about how many, you know, I had a conversation with, are you familiar with McRocklin?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine, man, and we had a conversation about this once. And it's all now, it's kind of like the YouTube thing where when you post a video, it all kind of goes on how many comments you get and how many
Yeah.
comments you reply to within the first like 20 minutes or something like that.
Mm.
And if you do that, then your video stays relevant for a while. So for me, I'll let you in on a little cheat for myself personally. If you see me posting a Van Halen video, apart from the last one, I've done the last one for a specific reason. But if you see me posting a random Van Halen video out of nowhere, that's to try and get my algorithm back to normal again.
Oh, really?
If I post like a Paul Gilbert style lick, guitar players dig it, and that's it. You know, like
Yeah.
people that are big guitar players are like, oh yeah, man, Paul Gilbert, you know, like, and then all these other people will be like, who the hell's Paul Gilbert? You know, like
Yeah.
if I post a Van Halen video and someone sees a Van Halen guitar, like a 50-odd-year-old woman from New York will be like, oh, Van Halen, I saw them back in, you know, blah, 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 whenever it was, you know,
Yeah.
and then that helps the algorithm on my page. And then after that, if I post a random blues video after that, that'll get more views than it would have if I didn't post the Van Halen thing. Instagram is totally exhausting, man. I don't know how people like Sophie and another guitar player that I really dig is Conor Kaminski.
Yeah, I've had him on the podcast. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I need to check that out. He's fantastic, man. You know, but he has social media absolutely dialed as well.
Oh,
Like,
he's got
you know,
it. Yeah.
if he's not posting a really sick video, he's posting a picture that looks amazing, like of his guitars. You know, like the photography stuff that he does
Yeah.
is
Very
great
good
as
guy,
well.
yeah.
You know, and I don't know how those guys do that, man. Like, I don't know how they constantly keep up with it, and because there's one thing that I try and sorry, one thing that I try and do is when I'm posting something, I'll try and reply to as many comments as I can. So I'll be still sitting up at like 1 a.m. replying to comments and stuff if the video does well and it gets a lot of them, because I feel guilty if I don't,
No.
which is a funny thing for me, you know, like I don't want to just ignore people, you know.
Yeah.
So I find that whole process exhausting. It's not just filming the video and posting it, it's also replying to the comments, engaging it, making sure the video keeps getting likes and views and all of that sort of stuff, man. And that's why I just don't really worry about it too much nowadays. Like what I was saying to you earlier, I've not posted for a month. I kind of just like post when I feel like it now, whereas before it was doing the same thing day in, day out. And you know, it really did get like a mixture of boring and exhausting at the same time, you know. The time you're talking about where my page grew, that was between 2018 and 2019. I went from like 20,000 followers to like 50 odd thousand, or just under 50,000 in the space of like 6 months.
Wow.
When I was like religiously posting on Instagram, and that was back when the guitar pages were pretty big. You know, like the guitars are better and University
Oh, I'm
Rock.
so fed up with them now. They used to be decent, but now it's like 5 posts a day at just whoever pays for it, and I'm just like,
Totally, man. You know, like I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say anything bad about people, man, but like you know the kind of videos I'm talking about, man. The people that are sitting there all done up,
hmm.
you know, their guitar's not even plugged in and it's quite clearly mimed. And it's like, you know, like that kind of stuff, man. That does my head in, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, or you'll see someone play guitar and they've got like 300,000 followers, but they can barely play Smoke on the Water worth the fuck. And it's just kind of like, what? Do you know, like that's the kind of thing where, you know, you said you saw my page and you were like, screw this guy.
Yeah.
You know, and like people like the kind of stuff that I do, I'll see these pages now, man, and I'll be like, bro, you're not even playing that. Like, then you've got like 500,000 followers. Like, excuse me.
As long as it's real, I'm like, as long as it's real in some sense and doesn't pretend to be fake. Like the I'm not going to call the guy out, but I imagine you'll know who this is. Where there's a guy, and he's not the only one to have done it, but his videos have got quite big, and it's just such BS. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Goes into a guitar store and pretends to be like a beginner.
Oh, not that guy, man.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. And like, thing is, right, with this podcast, as I've done it, I've been like, okay, I don't want to, I don't want to shit on people. I don't want to like,
yeah,
sort of spread that, and I don't want to be that guy, but I do want to bring in a level of honesty about what I actually do and don't like, because
Yeah,
and I wouldn't expect every guest to be as honest, but like I find that really annoying. I'm not going to out the guy, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows who that is.
absolutely, man.
And it's just like I just think that's so like
I think a lot of these things annoy people, man, on Instagram, but not very many people see it nowadays. And I'm not going to say anything terrible or anything like that, man, because I'm
yeah.
not a bad guy. But like,
He's such a great player. That's the annoying thing.
yeah, man, he's like,
Phenomenally good.
he can totally shred, and it's like, man, what's the deal with these videos? But you know what the deal with those videos is, man? It gets some views and it gets some followers, and it works.
I
It's
think
kind of like,
it's because it's annoying.
yeah, it's kind of like the YouTube stuff, man. It's like post a again, I'm not going to call anyone out, man, but there's guitar players that post like a really cheesy thumbnail and make a really cheesy video, and they have like over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. It just works, man.
Yeah.
It's like, and all power. To a certain extent, it's frustrating, and then to another sort of way, it's hats off to them, man, because
Yeah.
they're making it work for them. And but this is actually meant to mention this earlier. Are you familiar with Ben Eller at all?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He put up the most truth bomb post I think I've ever seen on
Really?
Facebook a while back, man. He was like, I think he was kind of referring to these sort of pages and stuff, man, or just Instagram people in general. He was like, don't take this whole Instagram thing where you have to have your followers, or the YouTube thing where you have to have your followers and your videos perfect too seriously, because in 30 years, no one's going to give a shit about a 30-second video on Instagram. And at the end of that post, he was like, with that said, I'm going to go back and listen to Van Halen 1, a record that came out in 1978 that people still listen to. And I was like, bro, that is the most true post I think I've ever seen. Because here's me worrying about, I'll call myself out here, man. Like, here's people worrying, like myself, worrying about, oh my God, my video never got 50,000 views today. Like, in 5 years' time, no one's going to give a shit about what video I posted that day, man. Like,
Yeah.
Whereas they'll care more about, hopefully, fingers crossed, man,
Mm.
they'll care more about the songs that I release, I hope. And I think that's, it just depends on what you want to do. Some guys, like your Jared Dines and stuff, he's really happy. I mean, I know he releases his own music, man, but his biggest thing is his YouTube channel and his Facebook stuff, and that's what he likes doing, and that's his sort of, I mean, he's like one of the biggest dudes in that kind of thing, man. So that's his sort of, what do you call it? Like, that's his like area expertise on social media. That's what he does. Um, but for me, Instagram's never been the end goal. I kind of got into Instagram and all this guitar stuff by accident. I didn't really realize it was a thing, and I actually didn't take it seriously for a very long time. And I was working with Strandberg at the time, and I kind of just thought it was all a bit of a joke, like as in social media and stuff. I didn't actually realize that it was important at the time. But again, man, like I know exactly who you're talking about, dude, on these videos, man. And like, power to that guy. As much as I find his videos incredibly infuriating, man. Like, I think it's like hats off to him if that's what works for him.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
think the thing is, if I were to have a conversation, I think I'd feel a little fraudulent not bringing it up. Almost. That's why I
yeah,
wouldn't be against talking to him, but I think like I would. Yeah, I feel like I'm really outing someone now, but it's kind of true that I think I would have to bring it up. I'd just be like, I wouldn't want to be too confrontational. I'd just be like, I
yeah,
don't, do you feel like this helps? Because I think what it is for me that annoys me about it is it's not the fakery in itself. It's the fact it's contributing to a wider sense of, well, it's fakery, but contributing to this kind of need to just put things out there.
yeah.
To just be as entertaining as possible, but not like it's not entertainment in the sense if you gain anything from it. It's like just kind of distracting.
It's kind of the TikTok generation, man. These quick sort of stupid videos of kind of like,
there will be reels of this on TikTok. I am warning you now.
that's all good, man. But it's like
they'll be more interesting though than just.
it's kind of like that, but that whole TikTok attitude, man. When you open Instagram and you see like a lot of cool videos, you open TikTok and you see like complete nonsense quite a lot of the time, man. It's kind of like that. It's kind of bled its way into Instagram now, in a way, and it's like, it works, man. But that Ben Eller post really hit the nail on the head for me, because it was kind of like, that video might be cool now and it might be getting a lot of views, but in a few years' time, no one's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
A big example of that is when, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a big thing in the guitar community where people got called out for speeding up their videos and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then it was kind of like, oh no, but that's just my style, man. You know, like that was kind of the reply to that, and that was a big, huge thing for such a while. And now I've never heard anybody talk about any of that stuff
Yeah.
for a long time. So it's like all of these things are they come and go. It's just social. There's been social media trends for years, man. Like all of these kind of things, and you know, I used to let myself get frustrated by these things, man, sometimes. But like now, like I said earlier, I kind of just stay in my own lane and focus on what I do and the people that I like, what they do, like their videos and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, guys like Conor, man, I love it when Conor posts a new video.
You
So I
got
just
some really
like,
cool stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I think he's one of the sickest like guitar players out there at the moment, man. You know, between him, Andy Wood, I don't know if you've listened to any of his guitar playing, man. He is
I know
ridiculous.
what he sounds like. I'm not massively familiar, but yeah.
He is outrageously good, man, in my opinion. You know, I think what Sophie does. I'm looking forward to actually hearing her like original music. Uh, you know, Andre Neary is another one of my favorite players. I love it when those guys post stuff on Instagram. And then, you know, pretty much everybody I follow, man, I love what they do. Because I don't follow something if I don't enjoy it. That's kind of pointless, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, I hope I've not like outed anybody on, on this podcast
No,
today.
it's not, I mean, like, but I think there's got to be. I think so. I mean, have you seen the Downbeat podcast? You know, Craig Reynolds.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he like what I think is quite cool about it is he'll quite. There are very few people now who just say if they don't like a genre of music or if they
yes,
don't like a band. You know, like I think it's kind of somewhat missing nowadays. Like, I was chatting to Serena from. Have you heard of Svalbard?
I don't
Heard the
think so.
name?
No.
They're kind of like UK sort of black metal kind of that sort of.
Oh, right, yeah,
Um,
that's way too heavy for me,
yeah,
man.
no, I mean it's kind of. I think I've probably done them an injustice. It's like ambient black metal, but it's also like I really should have asked for a descriptor on this. It's kind of it's not straight up black metal. That's actually definitely not fair. It's like a mixture of a lot of sounds. It's quite cool stuff. But
Yeah.
um oh my god, what was I going to say? We were talking about TikTok.
Yeah, we were
We
talking.
talked about TikTok. Oh, that's completely thrown me. Oh well, I'm sure it was interesting. I'm sure I'll think of it as soon as we.
Yeah, you were saying about how they're quite, you know, they talk about on that Downbeat podcast.
Oh
They're
yeah, that
honest
was
and
it.
stuff.
So she was saying, I was saying to her about how people are afraid to actually just say in a perfectly well-intentioned way that they don't like something. You know?
And that's just this world all over now, though, man. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to get too into that, but like, you know, it's you're not allowed to have an opinion anymore because you'll get cancelled if you have one.
Yeah. There's
And
a
it's
lot of things that you can get kind of like in terms of, but like even just on a band level.
oh yeah, I'm not talking about like anything like you know like politics or that, man. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I've got a rule where I don't watch the news. I don't care about politics. You know, like I don't care about really many things that happen in the world, to be honest with you, man. Like the way I look at it is I'm a guitar player, so like back in the old medieval days, I'd be nothing but a minstrel. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I live my life now. I don't focus on any of the politics stuff, or I don't get involved in any of the social trends and those kind of things, man. But yeah, like in terms of the music industry, it's like you're not allowed to say that you don't like a certain genre, or you're not allowed to say that you don't like something without being called out for it. And it's like, okay, so like, you know, what I said wasn't even bad. You know, I'm just not allowed to have an opinion
Yeah.
nowadays.
I think it's a
Uh,
little bit harmful because we just end up with it kind of like I know again I was saying this to Serena as well, but I think I know a lot of people who they'll support things like their mates' bands or bands that they're some way sort of tied to, which is great.
yeah,
They'll kind of sometimes tout them as like the next thing. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know, like it's
hmm
good and I like it, but and it doesn't. Yeah, you're allowed your opinion, but I feel like it's almost just being said out of this kind of flattering
friendship
sort of
thing.
narrative. Yeah, and it's just like, don't get me wrong, like support your friends, support artists, obviously, but like I don't know. I think there's a bit of room for some more discernment in like
I
actually
think
just
so,
saying if
then,
you don't
yeah.
like something anymore. And that's what I quite admire Craig for. He'll just say if he doesn't like a genre of music or whatever. Like I was watching a podcast with Mark Tremonti on. He was on Rob Flynn's podcast, you know, from Machine Head, and he's not known for being the most personable individual, I don't think.
Yeah.
And he just straight up said to Mark, he's like, I'm not really that keen on was it Alter Bridge or he said Creed or there's one of the bands anyway. He was just like, oh, oh yeah, you think he said he likes Tremonti, the solo
Mhm.
project. He doesn't
Yeah,
really like Alter Bridge that much.
yeah,
I kind of respected that because I was like, well, he's honest. He's just interested in talking to Mark because Mark's obviously a successful musician and
Yeah.
a talented guy and all that. And he's just like, he's just honest, you know. I mean, it was a little bit upfront, I'll be honest, but
It's
you know,
totally, man. Going on to the guy's podcast and telling him that you don't like his music, you know, that's
yeah,
a bit
it's a bit.
ballsy.
Although I think, to be fair, he did say he liked some of it. He just didn't like
Ah, right.
Shorter Bridge. So I was like, oh, okay, I kind of,
I think,
yeah,
you know, man, there's plenty of genres that I don't like, but like it's not that I hate them or anything, I just don't listen to them.
yeah,
You know, like for me, mumble rap, I can't stand it because it's just nonsense, but like people like it, so you know, who am I to say
yeah,
anything about that? There's some instrumental bands that I'm not a huge fan of, man, but I don't disrespect them or anything like that, man. You know, it's okay to if everybody, like I said earlier at the start of this podcast, man, if everybody liked the same thing, then the world would be pretty boring.
yeah,
There'll be plenty of people out there that watch me and they're like, "Oh man, everything that you do happened 40 years ago. Like, come up with something new, like you know." And like, that's fine, man. If you don't like that stuff, you know, that's okay. You know, I don't really look into it any more than that, really. It's like you know, there's obviously the band Polyphia, man.
yeah,
You know, I think their music's really cool, but it's not something I can listen to all the time, man, because it sounds to me like mumble rap beats with guitar on the top of it, you know, and that's just not me. But, you know, Tim Henson, incredible guitar player.
yeah,
You know, like I love watching some of his Instagram stuff, especially where he plays acoustic, like flamenco style guitar, because I'm like, I can't do that, and that's incredible that you can do that, you know. So it's okay to. I think if you go out and you straight up like hate on someone, then
yeah,
that's where the issues happen nowadays. That's where people are like, well, you can't really do that. Whereas, if you have a valid reason on why you maybe don't listen to them or dig their kind of genres, then that's okay. You know, I don't think that's. I don't know when that became not okay in the world. You know, like it's weird how that kind of works.
yeah. I think people are obviously, you know, especially more notable figures, don't want to just shit on a band because they know that, well,
Totally.
not shit on, but like even just say they don't like, because you're gonna have those nastier fans who just jump in and just like,
Yeah.
you know, I really feel sorry for bands like Nickelback. Actually, I'm just like, what do they do to deserve that? That's just like,
Dude, I was thinking
uh,
that the other day about Coldplay, man. Like Coldplay came on shuffle, and I was like, was that song? Was it Everglow or even I can't remember what it's called.
I
Actually,
don't really like Coldplay, but I don't understand quite. They get a lot of hate. Like,
I'll
not really.
tell you right now what that song's called, so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna get it wrong. Yeah, it's
I'll
called
find
Everglow, man. That song came on the other day, and I was like, man, that's a good song. Why do these guys get so much hate? You
Yeah.
know, but it's totally like the Nickelback thing, man. Like, you know, I'm not really a huge fan of their music because it's not like my thing, but you know, I don't know why they get so much hate, man. Like, I don't understand. You know, it's like it's not like they've done anything bad as people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I don't. It's kind of beyond me a little bit, but yeah, I think so it's kind of to kind of wrap things up. It'd be cool to hear what
Mhm.
I'm interested to hear what the future kind of holds for you, and it doesn't have to be concrete plans. Just like what where you feel that you'd like to take things, because I know. So are you interested in? I know you said you're putting together some more music.
Yeah.
Um, do you think you'll ever look to the band side of things? You know, you talked about like a vocalist, and there's. Do you think you'll ever look to that kind of music at some point? And going back to I watched a little bit of a podcast that you were in saying about how you love live performance.
Yes.
Are any of those things on the horizon or kind of in the back of your mind, sort of thinking maybe I'll do that?
So the immediate goal for the future is to release more instrumental songs that I've been working on, and then see how that kind of does. I don't really have a concrete plan. You know, I'd probably be quite happy to release instrumental music and do band music at the same time. But the ideal goal is to be in a band with a vocalist and play live, and
Yeah,
still do the Instagram stuff. I definitely need to kind of pull the finger out and get the foot back on the gas again with Instagram, man. You know, like you know, I said I've not posted for a month. That's a bit much for me. Like I'd like to get like at least a video out every couple of weeks, you know, or even once every week or something like that. You know, because it is good to do that. And I think when it comes to actually releasing more instrumental music, you'll probably see me post more on Instagram. But yeah, the goals for the future, man. Like I said, it's not concrete, but kind of like the path that Guthrie went down, where he released an instrumental record and then he played with other people or he played in bands and stuff. Instead of playing in like an instrumental band, for me, I'd like to play in one with a vocalist, kind of just like a straight up rock band. But at the same time, I'm not opposed to play. I really dig synthwave stuff, man.
yeah.
That's
I
kind of
saw
like
that thing you did with McRocklin where you did like a little shred straight
Yeah.
off. He does a lot of synthwavy stuff, doesn't he?
So like I play keyboard during lockdown. I decided to start teaching myself how to play piano. So I've got a whole bunch of tracks that I've worked on that are just like straight up synthwave stuff, and the only guitar playing in them is like clean chords that are absolutely saturated in chorus, like effect,
Ornamental stuff, like kind of.
Yeah, just like get some vocals on that. It's kind of like almost 1975-esque kind of stuff.
Cool. Okay.
Which is different for me, man. But that kind of goes back to the whole writing thing, where it's like I don't think when I write, I kind of just write what I feel like writing at that point.
Yeah.
And it all kind of sounds similar. It's always good to get a big screaming guitar solo in the middle of a song somewhere when you can, man. But like it doesn't matter if there's not. But yeah, that's a goal, man. Get some music out and then hopefully play it live because I've not played live for quite a while now and I miss it real bad.
Yeah, I like because I recently left my band. I'm kind of like, I'm happy that I've done that, but I'm gonna miss the live playing, especially the good shows and that. Like there's something about it, especially when people really go for it and they really enjoy what you're doing. Like
there's no feeling like watching people enjoy the music that you've written playing it live, man. That's so cool. Plus, it's just really fun, man. Being in a band's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's just I mean, like there's definitely highs and lows, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But, like I know the general experience is something I intend to get back to as well. So you never know, maybe we'll bump into each other.
Yeah.
Same stage at some point. It depends what kind of genre route either of us goes down, but
that'd be awesome, man. You mentioned Alter Bridge and stuff. I really dig those kind of bands. Tremonti's sort of solo project's really cool, but I've always really dug Alter Bridge, and not a huge fan of Creed though. But I think that might be a vocals thing.
I think people aren't so big. I think it's the vocals because they're quite they're just quite distinct. They're basically a bit Marmite, aren't they? His vocals.
Totally.
I think they're good. It's a bit of an interesting kind of style, but it's I just like the songs. I think they sound like a version of what I hear in Alter Bridge, and I really like that. So.
Yeah, a lot of people could say that to me about Van Halen, man, because David Lee Roth's like Marmite with his voice, man. Like he's before they went kind of more. Well, I better not say that because Van Halen fans will hate me, but like mainstream with when Sammy Hagar joined the band, they kind of went a little bit more not pop, but like a little bit more friendly because before that they were quite raw and like hard rock stuff back then. But I've always really dug Alter Bridge, man, because Mark's an incredible guitar player. The band's great, but Miles Kennedy's voice is just ridiculous.
It's absurd, like, the way he hits the high notes, like. Mm-hmm. With so much fullness. The only person I've heard do that recently, and I really want to chat to him on the podcast, is Einar Solberg. He's in Leprous.
Oh, nice.
His voice is it's the best. It's the most impressed I've been with a musician for a long time.
Wow.
And bear in mind, as a guitar player, I'm a complete snob, so to be impressed by other musicians is difficult.
Are you one of those guitar players that stands at a show like this with their arms crossed and just like looks at the guitar player the whole time? Like, are you one of those guys?
No, I'm not. To be fair, I mean, we all have those thoughts, but like, no, I'm pretty like, I'm not a judgment. I mean, so I'm friends with a lot of people who are in like sort of the indie scene.
Oh yeah,
that's the technical proficiency is nowhere near what it is in like metal. So I'm just used to watching shows where it's just like it's more about the song and the vibe of the show and everything, and it's like. Guitars can be used for a lot of different things, can't they? And you don't have to be like some sweet picking expert to be.
It's so funny, man, because a really good friend of mine, Michael, he absolutely shreds guitar. I don't know if you saw that technical difficulties video I've done.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah,
he's the guitar player in that video, but he's in a band called Vita Cartel, and they're kind of like indie rock, kind of not so much, but kind of like indie, but like there's pretty much like no. Well, there is a couple of songs that have got guitar solos, but it's funny to see him on stage playing chords and like big open like chords with like chorus on them and stuff like that. When I know for a fact that he could rip like 100,000 arpeggios over that section that he's playing right there. It's just funny to see him like restrain himself to like a bar chord. It's just it's cool. But yeah, it's I dig that stuff, man. Like I quite happily go and watch a metal band play a gig for a night. I quite dig metal music, even though you probably don't see that on my Instagram. I'm a big fan of bands like Meshuggah and
oh, they're crazy. I really want to see
like Wage War Architects, all of that kind of stuff. But like people that watch me are probably like, oh yeah, man, he doesn't listen to anything that's any more down-tuned and drop B.
I think Meshuggah are awesome. Like most metal guys, like they're just the best band ever. I'm like, I don't know about that, but I do think they're really good. Although they say like they're all like the tightest band ever, and that I can believe. I've seen them for all of like 3 minutes because I wasn't really a fan when I was at Download Festival a few years ago.
Nice.
And I saw them and I just kind of wasn't really big on it at the time. I could admire it. It was a really good sound. It sounded awesome. But yeah, never. Wage War and Architects I do like, but yeah, I'm not so much into the recent Architects stuff personally. Again,
I prefer the older stuff, man. Like,
I hate being that guy because you feel such a like. I don't know how I would feel if someone told me I prefer the older stuff. I'd be a bit like beaten up by it. But again, being honest, it's like it is more for me. But then there are loads of people that love. I do like. There are a few tracks off their latest album that I really like. I'm not so keen on the singles, but I do really like some of the songs off the new album. So to be fair, it's a good mix.
My girlfriend's a big fan of Architects, and she let me hear the most recent song a couple nights ago, like their most recent single, and I'm like,
Tear Gas.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I'm like, Eleni, this isn't Architects, man. Listen to this. And I put on like Early Grave, and I was like, that's Architects. And she was like, oh no, this is way too heavy. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like, man. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think their fan base is definitely changing. I think like, it's not the same as the same fan base. I don't think give it another 5 years, it might be an entirely different fan base. But
that's cool, believe it. They're evolving.
For them to do, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to see bands evolve, man. Like, you know, it's like yourself, man. You'll write, you know, your last band, the music you write next will probably be totally different. You know, and just until you find
I'm quite stubborn though.
You're like, it will be this way. God damn it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm still figuring that out. I kind of because I wrote a lot of I wrote the lyrics and everything for that last band. So like, I didn't write when I say and everything. I didn't write everything, but like would structure the songs, write the guitar parts, and contribute with bass and drums and vocals and lyrics. So like, a lot of it was kind of tied to the sound that I want to create. Totally. So I don't know whether I'm still torn as to whether I want to consciously change that or kind of just go with the flow. And I think I'm probably going to do the latter and just go with it. I don't know yet. So I'm taking a break from actually consciously writing stuff. I'm just going to chill in a bit. So,
well, once you've got some stuff, man, send me some of your stuff. I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, man, for sure. I definitely will.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I need you to ask a question, whatever you'd like it to be, for the next guest to set the tone for the whole podcast.
I'm going to ask a super simple question, man, but also one that might have like many different answers. I'm assuming all your guests are musicians, right? They're all
right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask your next guest, when you deal with writer's block, and like when you're writing stuff, and if you feel like everything that you write sucks, how do you deal with writer's block? How do you get yourself out of that, and how do you end up pushing through and finishing a song? Because that, if I hear that answer, it'll probably help me.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll be sure to. Yeah, it's a good one, to be fair. There's only been one time where I've had a duplicate question. Because when you went, it's going to be simple. I was like, it's not one of the ones I've heard, but you haven't. You're all good.
Nice.
I mean, the fact is, so this is probably like number 30 or something, or maybe like late 20s in terms of episodes. I imagine if I get to like 100, I'm going to have to just be like, nope, next question, just like, so I'm going to run out of, or people are going to have to like really think about it.
You're going to get some really obscure or mega, mega deep questions, man. Like,
yeah.
Do you feel like you're part of the universes, man? Like, or something crazy like that, you know?
Are we in a simulation or something? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're in like a what do you call them? Like a petri dish in someone's fridge.
I really like the theory that that like, you know how we look at things like ants and like small insects?
Yeah.
That we are that to like other universes where they're so much bigger and more evolved than us that they're just not even interested in us because we're such a tiny speck on their radar that like
that's awesome.
Another planet, another species, one of several billion.
Have you ever heard of the Hourglass Nebula?
Of the what?
The Hourglass Nebula.
I think you just typed my password in with that. I have not, no.
Look up after this podcast after we're off this, man. Look up the Hourglass Nebula. It literally looks like an hourglass with an eye in it. It's in space. It's terrifying, man. Okay. It's like, maybe that's like a dude looking through like a tiny microscope looking at Earth or some shit.
There's all sorts of possibilities that I find quite interesting.
I find it nice not to think about it though, man, because if I think about that stuff for too long, I will freak myself out. I'll be like, oh my God, I'm insignificant. This
Yeah.
life means nothing. Like,
I find some kind of weird solace in that. I find that quite comforting. Like
yeah,
I find the nothing matters thing a bit. I find that quite comforting. I'm just like, well,
yeah.
it doesn't matter, so I might as well just enjoy myself. And if I die and that's it, it's just like, well, all right, I did my.
It's just
my thing.
like, you know,
Yeah, it's like, how did you feel before you're alive? Well, I don't know. Well, that's how I feel after. Okay.
it's like, you know, if one of my friends went through a breakup, man, and he was like, "Oh man, you know, life this and all that kind of stuff," and I was like, "Bro, like the universe. This is actually what I said to him, man. I feel kind of bad about it, but it kind of helped him. Apparently, I was just like, man, the universe is massive. There's like billions of other people in the world that could potentially be your next girlfriend, man. Don't sweat it. Like, you know, you're only going to live for like 80 years or something max. So, like, you know, what's the point in being upset about
fish in the universe.
Exactly, man. You know, so you never know. You might get a girlfriend on Mars if Elon Musk manages to get up there at some point.
Yeah,
You know?
there is life, and you found a girlfriend there. So
Exactly, man. So, you know.
the other thing I need you to do is recommend an artist, or just a person, like just someone that you think, someone or an artist or whatever, to promote to the world, that you think deserves a bit of attention.
Man, there's so many I could name.
Yeah, I have to get you to rule it down to one, otherwise I'll be tagging like 10 different bands and people, and
I'm going to say my friend Michael's band since I spoke about them earlier. Check out Vita Cartel. I'll send if you want. I'll send you their Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll
this.
tag them on the yeah.
I really dig what they're doing, man. And the singer Aaron's like he's one of those vocalists that when I listen to his vocals, I'm like, wow, you know, like what we were talking about earlier. So yeah, they're all good friends of mine. So check those guys out.
Awesome.
I was going to say like some really obscure guitar player earlier, man, but I was just like, let's just go for a band.
Go with someone, yeah, like go with someone that can kind of that you're friends with. I was talking to Joao Medeiros yesterday. I think that's how you say his name. Hopefully, do you know? Have you seen his stuff? He does a lot of like covers and stuff on YouTube.
I probably have, man. I'm just really shockingly bad when it comes to names.
You might recognize him if you see him. He's present. And so he's who asked your question actually.
Nice.
He was saying about the importance of working with your friends and actually just like community and stuff. And I think it's nice that I've had I've not had a single band recommended more than once yet, which says to me that people are actually picking the ones
nice
close to them and close to kind of their circle, which I think is cool.
They're a really cool band, man. They're kind of originally they were called Gypsy Circus, but they kind of rebranded themselves with new music and kind of just started a whole new band kind of thing. So that their newer stuff's a little bit, well, I'm saying heavier. It's not like metal. It's like just kind of like indie crossing into like hard rock kind of stuff. But yeah, I really dig that band. They've got some new music coming out soon as well. So probably be a good time to give them a plug.
Nice, yeah. I've just had a look at Twitch. There's a person there.
Oh, nice.
I don't know who. So yeah, I don't know how. But thank you for letting me kind of whack it on Twitch. I'm trying to build that. I've got a whole 140.
No problem at all.
On there. So
let me know. Let me know what your Instagram is, man.
Oh yeah, I'll send all that your way, and yeah.
Awesome.
So wicked. Well, I might as well say bye to the one person on Twitch. So
thanks for watching.
Person. See you later. Cool. Okay. Well, I've ended the stream, so
awesome.
We'll say that. Is it gonna disappear? Oh, it does. Cool. Well, the little phone controller works. It should get more views than that. Like I said, I ran it on Twitch yesterday, and it was just an absolute nightmare. I ran it off my laptop, whereas I had this whole convoluted setup, and it works fine just on the PC.
Awesome.
Like, yeah. So, but thank you for chatting, man.
Anytime, man.